Hi everybody, welcome back to the channel. My name is Abby. You already saw the title of the video, so we don't really need to get too into it. It's just things that surprised me and things I didn't think about that would be hard during my instrument training. I do want to explain what instrument training is. So it is my second pilot license that allows me to fly in bad weather conditions, basically. So when there's clouds in the sky, or there's rain, or there's more fog and visibility is low. This is mainly for when you're flying in a cloud or something like that, because you can't see anything when you're in a cloud. It allows you to fly the airplane off of reference to the instruments. So you don't rely as much on what you see outside. You rely more on what you see on the instruments inside, and you learn to trust the instruments. Also, I call it a license. It is not really a license. It is actually a rating that I am adding onto my private pilot license. I just call it a license for people so I don't have to explain, and it's easier that way. But anyway, let's get into it. Oh man, God bless the queen. I am so glad that I wore pants that have really big pockets because I can put all my crap in there. Don't want to longboard with my bag, so I'm gonna leave my bag here, and we are parking in a tow-away zone. So I mean, can I even longboard with my foot? I don't even know. We're gonna find out. This video was planned, but it's not like I'd be planning everything, but it was planned enough. Okay, so for the first thing, we're gonna sit in this cute little field for a second. I'm trying to get further away from the road so you can actually hear me. The first thing I want to talk about is actually how talking about my feelings, talking about my emotions, just talking about my emotions is not something I do. It's not something I'm good at. So that is fine, I think, in other areas of life. But when it comes to flight training, we go through a checklist before you fly to make sure that you're mentally able to perform the flight. Instrument is a very high workload. It's a high workload, so that doesn't mix well if you just went through a breakup or a family death, or you're stressed about school or job stuff. Like, there has been so much change in 2020. I went through a lot of turbulent things throughout my training, and most people do. And it took me to tell Hillary until after he left, to tell him that, hey, I was actually scared during this lesson. I don't be saying that during the lesson. I said it afterwards. So it took me a while to even realize what my feelings were, but also I didn't even tell him how I felt until he left. So Hillary left to get a teaching job in a different state, and I told him, like, hey, now that I think back at it, the reason I didn't perform well in this lesson was because I was sick. And then this other lesson, I was actually scared. It was my first time doing an ILS. I had no idea what the freaking crap I was doing. It was at night. Like, I just really wish I was better at talking about my emotions, but I'm not. I'm really not. I can't wait to be done with instrument and have to never talk about my emotions again. And the whole it smells like grass. It smells good. The whole sharing feelings thing, I realized it's not even my fault. It's just like, okay, it is my fault, but like, I bring up the whole emotions and fear and feeling things because normally that's irrelevant to me. Like, I'm not like, don't ask, don't tell. Like, I don't talk about it. Like, I just don't care. Process my feelings. Like, I hit the ground running, like literally hit the ground running most days. I wake up and I like jet to work, or I jet to flight lesson, and I'm mentioning it because I don't even notice them, and then when I do notice them, it's like I'm not honest about it. Like I wasn't honest with him about how sick I really was, right? And then even it's just weird because I'm even thinking at work, like when I first started working on the ramp, people would ask me like, oh, how do you feel, or like, how are you feeling? And I'm like, that's such like a irrelevant question. Like, why does it matter? The job has to be done anyway. I really feel like I watch other people and like I try to have more emotions like them. And I have a lot of empathy and compassion, but I don't got many emotions going on. The doctor too, like I go for my foot and they're like, how are you feeling? Or, oh, that must have hurt. Or like, rate your scale on your pain scale on 1 to 10. And I'm like, bro, like I don't know. I don't be thinking about my emotions in that way. I'm gonna tell you that you gotta be honest with your emotions to yourself, but you also have to share it with your instructor. See, sometimes I get the first part right, so I'm like, okay, like I'm aware I am feeling fear. I am aware I'm feeling stress or fatigue, which is like pretty much all the time. But you have to also tell your instructor that. Both Hillary and this other instructor noticed my trust issues right away. Like right away. Bro, I went through 2 instructors in 2 months. They both noticed my trust issues right away. What does that say? Not good things. Probably not good things. But Hillary told me that I have to trust him to be able to flight train and get the most out of my lessons. And he's completely right. If you don't trust your instructor, I don't know, like, I don't even know how that would work out. I know how it would work out, actually, because I did that and it was kind of just crappy. Don't make progress. Like, you can't. How are you going to shoot a precision approach in ILS if you don't trust your instructor? Like, so much trust goes into that, especially when you're flying in IMC, actual instrument conditions. Now with Hillary, I think part of it was his age, part of it was I was his first instrument student, which I didn't know until later. So again, it was like a communication thing and not sharing our emotions, I think. I don't know. I'm not an expert in this. I really wouldn't know. One of our most stressful landings, I don't want to say like yelling at each other, but it was kind of like at that decibel volume. But one of our lessons, one of our most stressful lessons, I was landing and I was off center line. He hasn't flown with me that much, so I guess he didn't trust that I was going to land the plane safely. I also a bit of a crosswind, right? And then afterwards, I told him, I was like, hey, like, I don't do good with the whole like yelling thing. Also, I don't really trust you. And he told me, like, if you can't trust me, we're not going to continue training. And that's also why I tell you, like, you got to share emotions and you got to trust your instructor, and your instructor has to trust you to some degree. It's totally fair for the instructor to refuse to teach you, and you as a student too, just saying really quickly, you can swap instructors and you were allowed to not want to train with an instructor. So an instructor has that right to refuse you service, you know, in that way, because he's right. If I can't trust him, if I can't learn to trust him, then he'll go find another student. He'll just refuse to teach me. So we were able to kind of heal over that lesson inside and continue our training until he left like 2 weeks later. Like, yo, like, who thought that my toxic non-trusting issues of not trusting people or really anything, that would pop up in my flight training? Like, I thought this stuff, I feel like that I was struggling with, I was like, I'll work on it later in my life. And then it popped up in flight training, and I'm like, well, shoot, now I gotta work on it. That happened with Hillary, and then again with my other instructor who noticed kind of the same thing. He was like, if you can't learn to trust me, I'm not going to teach you. And I was like, dang, Abby, like, you did it again. You did, like, I didn't tell him about my trust issues with Hillary. I didn't say anything about it. This new instructor noticed right away, though, and he was older. He's way older than Hillary, and he's been teaching before I was even born. But you know what? Then he left too, like 2 weeks later. So then it's like, you didn't stay. So that is sort of like where my trust issues resolved from. So like I'm sort of justified in this. Okay, now we got the parts that I was dreading the most out of the way. That's out of the way. For the trust thing, my lesson on that is trust your instructor. If I knew how to do it, I would tell you how. I would share that information. I would not withhold that information from you. I'm just telling you, you should do it. Do I know how to do it? No. I'm just telling you not to be toxic like me. I think the trust thing does have to do with change, though. That is the other point I talked about. Change is something I was actually expecting that was going to be hard in my instrument training. Everybody told me for instrument, and I also agree with this now, having gone through it. I definitely agree. You don't want to change. You don't want to change instructors if you can help it. You don't want to change planes or airports. You want to really just stick to a solid training plan, fly every day or 3 times a week, and just keep things from changing as much as you can. Probably like, oh, this is gonna be trash. This is gonna be trash.
Hot mess inside a dumpster fire, inside a train wreck.
Because you know it was 2020, and you know 2020 came to throw hands, and still is throwing hands, and has been throwing hands. Here's where I'm at. I was saying, man, I don't want to change instructors. I was scared of that. I changed instructors 3 times. Oh, I don't want to have to swap the plane I'm training on. I hope I have it throughout the whole training. I swapped planes once. I don't want to have to trade airports, you know, like I want to train out of the same airport, take my check right there, do everything out of that airport. I swapped airports twice, more than twice, because I swapped, and then I'm training out of one in Washington right now, and it's under construction multiple times throughout the past 2 months. So I've been hopping between airports. So basically everything I feared changing so much during instrument. I wanted a steady training schedule. I wanted a steady schedule, like 3 times a week, the same instructor. Bro, like none of that happened. I laugh the same way I laugh when I think of my 2020 goals, big butt, big wallet, and I'm like, well, you failed on both of those. Okay, we're done. We're gonna go. My lesson through this, wait, actually, let me push. I wanna go fast on this hill. My lesson for this is not to be afraid, because 2020 is going to fight you. That's it. You're gonna try to control training. You're gonna try to control your schedule, and you can to an extent. But yo, man, like I went through 3 instructors, I went through 2 planes, I swapped back and forth between 2 airports for my training. I went through like 2 jobs, like I went through so much change through my instrument, more than any, like most other periods of my life, because you know, that's how 2020 is, that's how she lives her life. And at one point I was like, you know what? I'm gonna keep it pushing through training, and I'm gonna just give up on like keeping such a tight grip on my schedule, because it is not gonna happen. Whoa, wait. Lasciate bene, fate fine. Okay. I'm paranoid, bro. Okay, it's good. Another thing is debrief after your lessons, especially for instrument, because there's so much that you have to be precise on, and numbers and all of that. Safety is a huge issue. So if you mess up a little bit, you can't just be like, it's only 200 feet off of altitude. Like, that's not going to fly. It's literally not going to fly, because you might crash into a mountain and die from CFIT. Debriefs are basically you talking to your instructor about why you suck. I'm not like at a Pinterest photo shoot, so that felt a little bit weird, that angle. Post-flight debriefs that crush your ego are so great. They're so great. And a lot of it is because I would ask for the bad things. I would say, tell me what I did bad, tell me what I did terrible, tell me what scared you, what would have passed check ride, what wouldn't have. And I wouldn't ask about the good things. I very rarely would ask about what did I do good, because I'm not gonna seek praise. It's like a I'm not gonna seek praise. I wanna seek the bad things, because that will make me better. So I had an aggressive training plan. I have an aggressive training plan. I'm trying to get to my check ride before the weather, yo. I am racing that weather. It looks cute now. It is kind of a lot of negativity, especially if you're dealing with stress that you didn't tell your instructor, and then you fly and you don't do that well, and then you debrief after and they're like,
this is why you suck, this is why I hate your landings, this is why you can't track a radial to save your life.
Y'all go into there strengthened. Know that you will be better one day, and today might not be that day, but know that like that's what training is. They tell you what you suck at so you can be better. And maybe, unlike me, when you debrief, ask for good things. Say, was there anything I did that you liked? And if they really don't have anything, you're alive. That's good. Such a bad motivational speaker, like, I swear. And the faster you go, the more money you save, typically, because you don't forget things and you don't have to repeat lessons. I did one lesson essentially like 4 times with Hillary, and it finally clicked, but it was like, dang, that was a lesson that you were paying like $100 an hour roughly to learn. Would have been nice if you quat. I am a quick learner, but you know, instruments really, it's a world. It takes a while to become a citizen, kind of like the process here in the States. Okay, we're not gonna get political, but I think the lesson that I learned from this, I think you should have high goals and you should finish those goals, but I think you should be a little bit more realistic about the time and about your mental aptitude and other things that go into it. Because for me, I was like, realistically, Abby, in this dumpster fire of a year,
hot mess inside a dumpster fire,
you have very high goals. And so then I was like, I was supposed to be having my check ride during this day, and I'm like,
Abby,
did you ask for the fires to happen? Did you know your foot was gonna get hurt? Did you know that you would have to change instructors 3 times? Did you know that? No, none of that you could control either. The foot, maybe a little bit, you could have not been a dumbass, but you know what I mean? Another thing that was hard for me personally was finding the balance between progress and perfection. So I wanted to make very fast progress, but sometimes you make fast progress, but that doesn't mean you'll hit perfection. I realized that the standards I have on myself are high. I do that. I'm aware of that. I've been aware of that in most of my life. And I tend to have friends that are also pretty hard on themselves because we strive to a very high level. But then I thought about it and I was like, yo, Abby, you gotta chill out a little bit. I had a talk with myself and I was like, you gotta chill out a little bit because you are still a very low time pilot. So you're striving for very fast progress. You're striving for very high marksmanship and perfection. And you are pushing yourself very hard. And you are also working. You are also being there for your friends and your family. There's a lot going on. So you gotta find a balance. That's what a lot of life is about. Finding a balance between the things. And with flight training, it can be hard, and it's also different depending on what rating or license you're working on, because it does change. Now, the last point that I noticed that is hard about instrument training that I didn't even think of, I didn't even consider, is the focus on numbers. I thought I was gonna have trouble remembering the numbers. I thought remembering the altitudes and holding at altitudes and things like that, and that is hard. Personally, for me, what was way harder was just the focus on numbers becoming your worth, because when you think about it, a lot of things in life, about to get deep for a second. A lot of things in life we're defined by numbers, our height and our weight and how much we lift in the gym and what our grades are, how many friends and followers we have, and everything is defined by our bank account, you know, it's all defined by numbers, and then instrument is defined by numbers. It's all about numbers. It is hard sometimes to remember your worth when you're focusing on these numbers and you're not hitting these numbers, whether it be an altitude, whether it be the radial you were supposed to track and your heading is just off, or maybe you didn't literally land on the numbers when you go in for a landing. It can be hard to hold on to your self-worth and remember, like, you're still an awesome person and you're still a good person. That's hard to remember, especially after a crappy landing. I gotta stop as self-love practice for October. Abby, I think I need to stop making fun of my landings because they're like, they're not, like, they're pretty good. Now, I want to end out the video with talking about what I thought I would suck at and what I actually did suck at. So, and not in a demeaning way, but it's good to know. It's good to know. If you're preparing to go to your instrument, I want you to know. I thought I would suck at radio. I thought I would suck at remembering all the numbers that you have to, because there's a lot of numbers with instrument on the approach plates and altitudes and radio and frequencies. Holding patterns and entering holding and knowing which one to do, like direct, parallel, or teardrop, because that was such a stressful question on the written, and in real life, it's really not that bad. But instead, the 3 things that I sucked at was tracking a radial, even though it's so simple.
So let's talk about that VOR track, the VOR approach, right? The one I was trying to do. Is it getting worse? No. Is it getting better? Also no.
A VOR radial. I don't mean to yell, I'm sorry. Taxing slow, like, I'm gonna be honest, like, taxing slow.
Taxing slow.
And the third thing that I sucked at is just landings, because you don't really land that much during instrument, and then it's been 2 years since my private. Okay, before we finish out for the outro, I wanted to talk about just some cool things, some things that surprised me in a good way, and some things that made me happy and that I liked about instrument. That does not make me happy, yo! Can you go do your run-up somewhere else? Disrespect. Radial work. I was so worried about how I couldn't track a radial to save my life, literally save my life in a situation where I was flying in a cloud. I was so worried about that my radio skills just got better and better, and I am really good at radio, and it wasn't really a problem for instrument training. There were parts where radio was a little bit harder, and Hillary laughed at me because I said some stupid stuff over the radio, but radio was never as big a problem as I thought it would be throughout training. So the cool thing is I'm good in radio. I'm happy with my radio skills, and I did learn how to track a radial, so I got both. It was just because I was so focused on tracking a radial, my radio skills, I built those up kind of without realizing to compensate, I guess. There is something very calming about being under the hood or under the foggles and just focusing on the instruments and not on outside. It's kind of like when a horse has blinders on, you know how, well, I mean, like back in the 1800s, but how horses would have blinders so that they wouldn't see everything and freak out. That's what putting the hood on feels like to me. It feels like it calms me down. I thought the opposite would happen, but it feels like it calms me down, and I really like it. When it's really bumpy and I'm airsick, like, that's a different story, but for the most part, I think instrument flying is kind of calming, and you get into this rhythm, right? You get into the scan that you will use, and you use a different scan depending on the phase of flight too, which is something they don't really talk about in training or during the written, but you do use a little bit of a different scan from takeoff to cruise to landing or shooting an approach. I like being under the hood. It's really calming to me, and it's kind of like a dance, but it's not like a dance, but like it kind of is, because you get into the flow, and then it's like you talk on the radio and you do your scan, and then you do the GPS, and you get into this rhythm. Like, I really like it. I think it's really cool, and once you get to that point in your comfortable flying instrument, that's also just so happy, man. That is so happy. That is such a good lesson when you get to that point. That being said, my workload went up exponentially. Like it went up, yo, because from private to instrument, you just become so much better at doing the thing, but also doing the thing while doing 4 billion other things. Kind of funny, because in a car, right, you shouldn't be on the radio, you shouldn't be switching dials, like, you shouldn't be doing all this stuff and multitasking in your car, but in a plane, you're supposed to. And also in a plane, we actually fly one-handed because one hand is on the throttle, so that's really weird. I think about how you multitask so much, and flying is more dangerous, and there's more axes of control, and there's more movement in a plane compared to a car that's just on the road, but you multitask so much in a plane during instrument, and it's overwhelming, and it's going to be overload, and your instructor will overload you on purpose to see what you can take and to stretch your level with that, your comfort level. But man, my workload went up so much for flying, and it makes me a safer pilot because now I can handle a lot more in the cockpit. And I'm a lot better at managing my resources and handling the stress and handling all these different things happening. And my radio skills are just way better. I'm not scared to clarify, and just my radio skills are a lot stronger. And then that makes a safer pilot because you're not confused about things and you're actually communicating with a tower that is supposed to be controlling you and looking out for your safety. So radio skills are way better. My workload is way better. I actually enjoy instrument. I enjoy the numbers. They are reassuring in the way that it's like, if I set this airspeed and this pitch and this amount, like 18 RPMs, you know, on the engine, on the throttle power, I know that this is a performance I will get from my plane. And that is what people say, I think, when they mean numbers are calming and numbers are kind of nice, because you know if you put this input, you're gonna get this output. Unless there's icing and you don't catch it, and then you're just gonna die. Honda Civic, and on top of that, no, I don't get anything else. I totally deserve a ticket. But filter changed. I changed. It was like way too white before. So, hello, welcome to my videos. That's where my favorite gym shirt is. Dang, I had it in here. What? You are coming with me, Tokyo. Oh, the lighting. Ah, Mother Teresa, that's not okay. I went through 3 instructors for my instrument training, not because I suck, not because they suck, but just because of circumstances, although they would probably say that I suck. But you know, I am proud of myself. I am proud of myself because even just talking about this in a video means I'm talking about my emotions.